Exeter TV. Exeter TV is the town's public and government access channels, available on Comcast Channels 6 and 22. Channel 6 is your channel. If you have an idea for a program, want to host your own talk show, or submit a film, we're here to get your content on television. On Channel 22, we bring you live and replay coverage of government meetings and other town updates. A third channel, Blue Hawk Media, is operated by SAU 16 and can be found on Channel 8, with all your school sports, events, and meetings. You can watch Exeter TV online at exeternh.tv, Apple TV, and on Roku. Find us on social media for extra content. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell to get notified about live streams and new content. Tune in to our platforms every other Friday to watch the Exeter Bi-Weekly Report, with recaps of recent events, updates from town departments, and messages from nonprofits in your area. If you head to our website, exeternh.tv, we invite you to sign up to our newsletter to receive monthly updates about new content, upcoming meetings, and more. We'd like to thank you for taking the time to watch Exeter TV and hope that you tune in to our other content as well.
Okay, people. My teacher voice. I'd like to bring a meeting of the Heritage Commission Demolition Review Committee to order. My name is Françoise Elise. I'm the chair of the Heritage Commission.
Okay, I'm Pam Jedham. I think most of you know me. I've been on this for a long time. It's wonderful to see this many people come. I told Barbara I'd be right over at the town hall for the Historical Society meeting because I didn't think anybody would come. So, but here you are, and there, I think you all know Julie Gilman down at the other end, Select Board Rep. So, yeah, we'll go on to talk about 112 Front Street.
So the purpose of this meeting is to hold a public hearing on the historic significance of 112 Front Street. A building permit has been filed to demolish 112 Front Street, a building and a barn. Demolition permit applications come before the Heritage Commission Demolition Review Committee on any building 50 years or older for our input as to the historic significance of the property and a recommendation whether to approve or deny the permit. We're holding this public hearing to get input from the public on their knowledge of the historic nature of the property. Can I have a motion to open the public hearing?
So moved. Second.
All approved. That motion passes. Mr. McCarcar of Granite State Construction is here. He is the applicant, and I was going to ask him if he'd like to make some comments.
Thank you. As you mentioned, I'm Sam McCarcar. I purchased 112 Front Street, and after looking at it, it's decided that the building's going to come down. The cost versus trying to restore it, jacking it up, redoing the foundation, electric, plumbing, and just a lot of things there. It's cost prohibitive. As of right now, it's zoned commercial, so there's a lot of different things that can go in there. Parking garage, a business, or anything. My intent is to work with the planning board and all the town officials to put something that's an approved use in there. And right now, the intent is residential. So what that looks like, I'm not sure 100% because we're still surveying. We did some test pits on soils and some other things, the due diligence period. And then once we're done, the engineer will submit something to Mr. Sharples, and we'll start that process with technical review and planning, anyone else. But I live on Auburn Street. I've been here for just shy of 40 years in the community. I've done a lot of work, in this community and also outside of it. So I'm hoping that it's an opportunity to meet the abutters. If there's any concerns or anything, just I'd be more than happy to answer them. And I've been working with the Merrill family for quite some time. I thought I had this house purchased at $600,000, then at $640,000, and was going to let a family member stay living there. This was for years. This has been going on, and they decided they wanted to put it on the market. When it hit the market, I gave them a full price offer with no contingencies, just because I wanted to purchase it. And a developer outside of town came in, escalated the price, and we ended up purchasing it for $1.5 million and $2,500. So at that price, and any chance of trying to restore the property, it takes it out of contention. I also worked with Andrew Merrill. He was the one representing the family, and I asked him to, in my purchase and sale, in the addendum, I put down that I wanted to set a historic marker or something to acknowledge the family that has lived there. And I also talked to the brother, and then I brought it up at closing when Hannah and some of the other family members were there. As of till today, I have not received anything from them. In fact, Andrew said, Sam, we don't care if you take it down, do what you want, it needs a lot of work, we know that. They wanted the money for their estate so they could take care of some of the other family members, and that's happened, so,
Okay,
yep.
thank you very much. And if you could stay until, maybe answer some of the concerns.
Will you escort me to my car afterwards?
Yes. Yes.
No worries. I got your back. Can I ask the first question then?
To come to one of the microphones.
Well, were we going to give input from the committee on information? So the
You can do either.
committee, okay. Committee members here have information on the historic value of the property that they did want to present, but we could present that and then take input from the public? Okay, great. So,
Well, okay. There are older houses in Exeter, as I'm sure you all know. This particular property was originally from the Chase family. And Ezra Chase, who died in October of 1890, left it to his widow, but she actually owned the house. That happened a lot in the 1800s. They would put the property in the wife's name. And Abby Chase sold it to Benjamin Merrill in 1879. And Harry Merrill, who used to run the bank, some of you are old enough to remember Harry Merrill, he remembers moving into 112 Front Street in 1880 when he was 6 years old. And the Merrills basically have lived there ever since. So Harry gave it to David, who was married to Nancy. And David's brother Sidney lived down the street with Nancy's sister. So 2 brothers married 2 sisters. And Nancy Merrill, I think many of you remember, was the librarian here. She worked at the she was curator of the Historical Society, and of course she wrote the history of Exeter. So keeping Exeter's history was very, very important to her. And so now we have to decide on whether to keep her house. And I have to agree that that house needs lots and lots of work. But I just hate to see it go. And, you know, when people say, what does the Heritage Committee do? What's your point? Well, I say the point is to keep Exeter looking like Exeter. And people keep moving into town and they say, oh, I love this town. I came here because you keep it so historical. Now give me a variance so that I can do this and another variance so I can do that. And suddenly it doesn't look like Exeter anymore. It's very, very frustrating. Now, I did talk to when we went through the house, we did talk to the developer, and he was kind of sympathetic about possibly at least trying to keep the facade looking like the facade. But, you know, we have to be very careful about stuff like that. So that was a really thumbnail history of the house. I know Julie has all kinds of pictures of maps and things if you really want to see them. But
Well, yeah, I need to move that because I zoomed into the wrong area. Or not enough. I'm sorry this is so well read. Maybe when I go way off the screen. This is a copy of the bird's eye view of the 1884 map of Exeter. It's published by the Exeter newsletter at the time. And I'm sorry about where I'm zoomed in, but the property in question in 1884 is right at the tippy top up here. And it shows the house and the additions that followed.
And if you can move it over to the right, then you could see that it backs on the cemetery.
I can't.
Okay, all right.
I can over here, I couldn't over there. But it does, the property is quite deep. It's a 2-acre property that backs up onto the Exeter Cemetery. Now, and Pam gave the date of the building. This is the image as best as I can get it. Does everybody know what it looks like today? Because it would take me a little time to
None of us thought
get
to
it off
bring
my
a
thumb
picture.
here.
We just assumed you knew what you were talking about.
But we went through and toured the building, went through the several, all the rooms, looked at the construction of the basement and the attic to see if we could age the building that way. There's some discussion, as Mr. McCargar said, about which part of the building was original and which was added on. And I found that the foundation was equally aged in both parts, leading to a difficulty in trying to determine that kind of thing. The attic was available to review in the front part of the house. Don't recall if we got to the back part of the house, the attic in there. And it's typical construction from the period. There's not anything very outstanding as far as how the built structure is. What we found was that the setup of the rooms is typical of that time. Four rooms in that front house, and the additions on the back are very interesting. You can tell where things were added because they need to expand for the number of people that were in the house or things like that. And the interesting thing is that the trim on the back half of the building, what's described as the oldest part, is actually more fancy than what faces the street, which can lead to the conclusion that the front part of the house was built at a later time. But that's not necessarily true. It's just an observation. What else did we find? The barn was here way back at the end of that. We looked at the barn, and we did find that the barn itself could be rehabilitated, but that it's lost, although we are losing in-town barns all over town, isn't necessarily worth keeping. But we did decide to have this public hearing because we had mixed feelings about what to do with the original house. I think. Okay. Want to go with your findings, and John?
Did
John?
you have any?
I think you've said it well. It's a tough call because there is a lot of work that needs to be done, but I would agree with those who would like to see it stay. I just don't know how that's done.
Well, the historical significance of the building embodies Nancy Merrill, who wrote this book on Exeter's history, 1888 to 1988. And I do have her obituary here, and I know some of you in the audience did know her, but I mean, she has such an investment in the town, working for the Historical Society, doing what appears to be the first walking tours of Exeter, writing this book. It's just very, 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 very valuable. In terms of the state of the house, it's in very, very disrepair. And I think going forward, a charge of the Heritage Commission could be to do more outreach to help people who do want to keep their houses and not have them being torn down. It's prior to getting to a situation where the house is deteriorated and they need to sell it. And I'm just going to say a few of these examples is the community action agencies in the area do work with weatherization and helping people install updated heating equipment in their homes. A lot of these buildings go into such disrepair because you can't afford to take care of them. And so this community action agency weatherization programs could help. If a house does want to go on the National Register, it is a lot of work, but it does prevent it from being demolished. We could work with people in writing in deed clauses to their homes and when they go to sell their homes that they do not want it to be demolished. So when you go to sell it, the buyer would be agreeing to that. We've also done a lot of work on documenting historic neighborhoods, and we're currently working on the Pine Street neighborhood. If you do have your home in a historic district, that does protect it from demolition. And we have done studies on other neighborhoods, perhaps, and some of them have not, the neighborhoods have not accepted to be in a historic district, but maybe we could reshape the neighborhood, and maybe half the neighborhood does want to be in a historic district and versus the other half, and we could maybe reshape what we had proposed in the past to be historic districts.
Can I interrupt you for just a second?
Yes.
This area of Front Street is not in a historic district, and I have to correct you. Sorry, Francoise.
Sure.
If a building was in a historic district and was proposed to be removed, the HDC can say no, and they would have to appeal to the ZBA.
Okay.
But but this body can't say no. We can just recommend yes or no.
Right. We just have recommendation abilities on whether this demolition permit should be granted or not, granted or approved. So I think we have some work to do to assist not getting to the point where a building is so deteriorated that there's no really other options in terms of restoring it. And I'd like to work on that going forward. So if there are no other comments from our committee, I'll open up the public hearing to the public. If you would like to speak, you can just go up to the podium, state your name and your address, and...
Well, I guess I'll go first. I stood up, sorry. My name is Vince Powers. My wife and I, Emery, live at 13 Gill Street, which is the third house from the back, if you're looking at the cemetery going forward on the property. My question is, you said it was zoned commercial, so I guess we have a lot of trees that are aligning our property with his, and so I wouldn't want to see those come down. I don't know how we can prevent that, but I think they're on the property line. I don't know if you looked at that, the tree line.
I did, and
If there's going to be a conversation between the two of you, you both have to be at a microphone. And typically, your question would come to us, and then we'd ask Mr. McCarkar to come on up. The question has been asked.
so how I'm looking at it right now is if, I'm still working to see exactly what goes there. It is residential. One of the allowed uses is multifamily, so they would have to be attached. If I want to do single family, then I have to go get a variance from zoning. Because right now, it's not zoned for that, and then they may consider it a small residential subdivision. Then you need the frontage, a minimum of 5 acres. You have to do your yield plan and everything, which I've done on Little River Road. So if I do it, the thought is the driveway stays where it is. I'd like to put up a much nicer fence along the entire side of Gill Street, which I've agreed to already on Little River Road, and not one abutter even came out to the planning, because I worked with each of them individually before we got it. I showed them what we were doing prior to even going, and I'd like to do the same thing here. And then we're putting in some trees that are also 16 feet, not little, small 6-footers. So that's all part of planning. And I just wanted to make a comment about, the historic part. I would recommend work with planning and get some of the zoning changed on what could be built, what houses could look like when they're coming into the neighborhood. I was opposed to changing things downtown because I'm one of the people that want to kind of see it stay the same. The downtown charm that we have, it's an attraction to the community, but obviously there's a need for housing, so. And I've also already offered, when they're on the tour, to work with them to show them what was going in there, that we could do it with cedar, just different styles of houses, so.
Okay. Oh, did you,
Another follow-up question, what's the height is it 2 or 3 story is there a limit to how tall the townhouse is?
that's a good question, and I'm not aware of that.
It's 50
I don't know if
feet.
that's beyond the scope of this, but it's just something that,
It's 50 feet for commercial, residential's 35.
and this is commercial,
It's commercial, but we're not gonna build a
50 feet,
tower.
30, okay.
No, it's, yeah.
And then what about what would be the property, if there was a driveway, could it go right up against, again?
A driveway, even on Gill Street in your neighborhood, could go literally right on your property line, right up to your abutter. That's outside of commercial or anything, just in any residential area. You could put a driveway right on your property. You typically have, I believe it's a 15-foot setback for a structure for residential on your sides, 25 in the rear. Commercial, it's a little bit different. Yeah.
Sorry, could you repeat that? This is you on the property that was purchased could put up a driveway abutting the backside of the Gill Street homes? Is that what you just said?
But it's not gonna abut it.
No, I'm just clarifying.
I mean, we want trees and a much nicer fence all the way down, to establish like a nice neighborhood, like a nice area of homes. When you're pulling in, you're not looking at like a sea of asphalt
Yes.
of a driveway. Yeah, and 50-foot tall towers coming out of the ground.
Cool.
Yeah.
So I'm addressing you guys
Oh,
and
okay.
him as well, right?
Did you want to go? Okay,
No,
sure.
please. No, please. I just need a seat.
Thank you.
Hi, Eileen Flockhart. I'd like some clarification about, number one, contents of the house and their historical significance and what was resolved there. We have no information about that. And what exactly do we have deteriorating physical structure, or is it just a difficult old house to deal with? Are pine bark beetles turn the beams into dust? I don't know any of that information. And when I look toward a solution to this, as the chair of the tree committee here in town, I'm very concerned about losing established trees, and replacement new trees are still a long way from what your established trees are in the neighborhood. And it takes years to build that back, and you can make every neighborhood look adorable, but it takes 20, 30, 40 years to get the kinds of trees that you've got in that space now. So I guess I have several questions,
Okay.
What happened to the contents of the house? What is the level of deterioration that warrants, I know it costs money to do anything, and going forward, what would be a plan for trees?
I think Sam would like to address that, some of the questions.
So the house and the barn was pretty much packed, where you could almost barely not walk through it with contents. They sold a lot of it. They had family members come and they took everything and put it in one of the rooms in the original part of the house and put everyone's name on it that was sentimental to them. And then they took it and then they put a lot of the other stuff out front and put free. There's one bed upstairs, it's a giant bed. Yep, that big tall headboard and everything. It's kind of, looks like it's cracked and it's just, and they had it on casters, but that's still there. There's, I think, one dresser, and there's a dresser or two in the barn.
And just for your information, the furnishings are not something that we take into account because anybody can move in a bed at any time. So, I could have an antique in my house, but that predates my house. So we look at the structure and the trims and those kind of things.
And if you were to look, not that I want anyone on the property for insurance purposes, but I would meet you there and walk you through if that was something that you wanted to do. The left side, you could just look at the red bricks where the porch is, and they're literally falling on their own off the foundation. Downstairs where the original house was, they added the other one, and that's where the staircase is falling into the basement. That brick foundation is crumbling. If you go further up where the granite is, you see daylight. And a lot of it is just, so Julie had mentioned they added pieces over time. There's one piece, how, I still don't know how it's still hanging there, but it's just hanging off the back of the building. That's put weight and created a structural issue. There was some leaks in the chimneys. They took care of it. I don't know if it caused really any major water damage. But to remodel a home like that, essentially I would have to take the entire interior down to a shell, rip out the entire floor, jack up the staircase, then jack up the building, put a new foundation, and then rewire it and plumb it and heating systems, and then the windows, because the windows aren't going to survive jacking it up and everything else. And then you have chimneys on top of that that would have to be taken down. So essentially there's not going to be much left. And then I was told tonight that somebody went to bring one of the brothers that were there food once and almost fell through the front porch. If you just look at it and walk up to it, it's rotted. There's a lot of things that would need to be repaired. I took an estimate of probably $500,000 in repairs just for the main structure. That didn't even include the barn.
The piece that Mr. McCarkar is talking about that was added on is this really, can't even call it a bow window. It's like 6 sections or something. It was clearly added on in the 70s or so, which was not something that we considered.
Yeah. And inside, it's not historical. I mean, the kitchen was Formica. There was some plywood. And also the floors have all been replaced with strip oak or maple or just, there's one room I believe we saw that had the original wide pine boards. That was the first floor down on the right-hand side.
Yeah.
Well, we know that it's a house that's been lived in by a big family for a long time. And if you have 6 children, well, you're going to have to put bedrooms for them, and you're going to have to put closets for them. And this was generation 2. There was another family before that. There was also a big family. So yes, you can see where this room has been added and that room has been added. And yes, you can look around and even I can see, yep, that foundation does not look good. Yeah, go ahead.
Did you want to go next?
Oh, I'm
Yeah.
sorry, did I step in front of someone?
I think,
No, hi, my name's
Yeah.
Lisa Masqua. I just have 3 little kids at home, and I am behind you on 11 Gill Street next to the Powers. I wanted to come to the meeting because it's very, I think, important, again, from the Historical Society's point of view, to maintain, even if it's not a historic district, the charm of Exeter, especially in the location that it's on. It's pretty much on the cusp of exiting the town, and I think, or not the town, but that very historic area, and I think it gives people an impression as they're coming in as well as they're leaving. I understand that we all can see things crumbling, but you're also making comments of my basement, it looks like that. You're describing the situation on 11 Gill Street when we moved in, with a crumbling front deck, with a basement that has things crumbling, that is currently jacked up on things. So we did work to it. We didn't change the facade. We are making the investment because we want to live there for 20, 30 years to see these new trees, that might get planted in the back come to life with our young children. And I think it's important that Sam, you respect that, and also that the board makes specific recommendations if the house is to be demolished, which if it needs to be, I think it should be coming from a reputable source. I don't get your history, but it seems like you have a good background. But as far as an actual engineer, et cetera, that can say that this needs to come down or that it's literally, unfeasible. And again, if that is your background, I 100% would understand. So I'm not saying you shouldn't tear it down if it needs to be. But I am saying that if it is something that goes in its place, even if it's zoned residential, that commercial, that it remains in the residential spirit that the neighboring homes are maintaining. And I think that means specific guidelines, such as meeting a certain number of requirements that other homes in the area have, neighboring homes have, including trim work, the number of levels that there are that are true to the Merrill, is it Merrill House? Sorry, I'm working on like 50% brain power. The Merrill House initially had. I understand that there's additions, and of course there are because families aren't the same way, and we also don't have servants in our homes anymore, so a lot of them look differently than they initially did. But specific recommendations, I've lived in another historic street, and when making remodels or adding anything that was street facing had to meet at least, 6 out of 10. So I think that would be something reasonable, Sam, if you were able to do to maintain that spirit, because we will be your neighbors for a long time. And I think maintaining that community that we have, I understand that the town needs homes and places for people to live, but a multifamily, again, I know it's not a historical district, but it is a historic home. Making it not a new neighborhood with multifamily and a bunch of cars going in and out on an already very busy street with a very busy intersection, I think would be important to maintain. So I didn't really have any questions aside from saying that I think for myself and my neighbors, we're very passionate. We appreciate the information that you've given us so far. I am curious if you do have more, because if you've been looking at the unit for so long, I'm sure that there has been some kind of engineering process, somebody that's been looking into it for you, and any plans that you have so far would be greatly appreciated as well.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I looked at it.
Yeah.
I live on 34 Auburn Street in a
Yeah.
1780 Colonial.
Nice.
It's only 18 by maybe 32. So that one was easy to jack up the staircase. When you open the front door, you looked at the basement.
Right.
That was a $300,000 purchase. It's my home. And when you walk into it, you see the nice beams that have bark on them still because the way it was built.
Yeah.
I was able to do that. This property, and I'll walk you through it. You're in an old home. It's piecemeal, all put together, and it's a different animal. And I don't want to diminish anybody's property, but if you look at the house and you look to the right, there's a couple homes there. They've already been vinyl sided. Across the street, there's vinyl sided multifamilies. There's a 2-family.
Yep.
I mean, so you have the multifamily, which is condos right at the end of your property. So anything I've done, I remodeled 34 Lincoln Street, right across the street from Lincoln Street School. That was my property that I lived in for a lot of years. I don't put up garbage. I work with the planning board. I work with the abutters, and I've already offered Julie and the board, even though it's not within their jurisdiction, to stop this process or say this is what you have to put in. On my own, I put it in my purchase and sale agreement that I wanted to acknowledge the family that was there, and I offered to show them the plans and take their suggestions and input on exactly what you're talking about, so whatever's there, at least facing the street, looks like it's been in keeping and it's been there for some period of time with, brick walkway. We talked about cedar siding. You mentioned the cement board, the style of the exterior of it, because it's important to me as well as a member of the community.
Yeah.
So
I guess the second part of that is I jokingly mentioning what our homes look like, and again, I trust your opinion if it needs to be torn down. I think maintaining that as a homage to the age of the home, and maybe the history that was there. I think my secondary comment was that if is there in the plans that you said that you showed them to any indication that you'd be building further down towards the end of the cemetery? Or is that,
Yeah, I'm gonna try to utilize all the land.
right, so I
Yeah,
think
it's a-
that that's
This is an
what.
investment. I mean. let me
100%.
just-
So I think
obviously
that
be clear
that's what
about
I just want to
that,
be
but yeah.
transparent and that
Yes.
others understand as well, is that if there's going to be multiple units and how many units those are, that they also maintain some of that, and that the board and any kind of building that is permitted understands that that's turning our backyards into another street. And I don't know that that's something that the area can really manage with the amount of traffic there is too, to like have 8 or 10 new units that are there.
Yeah.
So I think that's our concern, is that.
Yeah, and all that will go through the proper channels. There'll be a technical review, DPW, Fire Department, Mr. Sharples from the Planning Board, Doug Eastman. I mean, there's a whole process. I can't just go and say, this is what I'm doing. You know, we have an idea, but then we'll have to go through the proper channels to.
And just so you understand, the Heritage Commission is limited to a 30-day period to comment and make our recommendations.
Yeah.
And Mr. McCarkar doesn't yet have the full idea of what he's doing, but he does have to go forward through the planning board for.
Through the planning, and if I was to
Yeah.
change it, which we started talking about today, could I do, less and maybe smaller, like, single-family homes or something? That's what we're trying to do, to see what makes sense. And then at that point, we'll sit with the town planner and Doug and work through that process. And everybody will obviously be notified when that happens, so. And I'll reach out to you once I know, even before the planning, so.
Thanks, Sam.
Hi, thank you. Rose Bryant, 120 Front Street. Hi, Sam.
Hi.
Hi. I was wondering, I heard Sam mention "we," so I'm wondering who the "we" is. Who are the people that are building and the investors in the property?
That's not our purview.
Oh, okay. Is that something that, who do I ask that of?
You can ask me out today later. You have my number. So.
Yeah.
And I definitely understand what Eileen is talking about with the trees. I don't know how much of that goes into the historic conversation, but there's definitely one large old beech tree that is on the property. It's beautiful, and I don't know what the plan would be to work around some of the, if it's a drive-in and a drive-out. And then as far as the style, so it sounds like that's been addressed as well. I guess at this point, I may have missed some of the conversation. Is the intention of the property to be houses or condos or apartments?
Again,
That's something
what's going on in the future is not something that what we look at. We're looking at what's in situ and what it's looking at as a historic resource, meaning how the town was developed, what part, does this show an example of development over that time period or over the time period of the town? And I'm going to say this now because I didn't say it earlier, but one of the things we look at is how it's situated in the neighborhood.
Yeah.
And it's not like it, well, I don't want to give examples, but does it show a period of growth in the town that is important to us to keep examples of? If you look at neighborhoods like, say, Forest Street and out behind Park Street, those are all small-scale, single-family houses. So we would consider, if somebody was demolishing it, how it fits in that neighborhood and did it meet the same kind of growth that was in the neighborhood. So that's one of the things we looked at here, too.
Right.
It sounds like Sam's not sure what he's going to build anyway. He's talking about some different things.
I still have to do a yield plan,
Yep.
see what fits there. You can't just take a box and say, this is what I'm putting in, Jim.
No, I understand. I'm
Yeah.
just explaining it to her, but he'll have to go, not to us, but to the technical review committee, which is made up of department heads in the town, then the zoning committee, and then the planning board. I sit on the planning board, and I'm sure we'll see him 3 or 4 times before all is said and done.
So really what we're looking at, no, we can't answer any of your questions about the future, what's going to go in there or anything like that. What we're talking about is the historical significance to the town
Yeah,
of the current structures.
Yeah, I definitely would love to see the, the appearance of the front. It would be lovely to be able to keep something like that because of the way that it's been on Front Street for so long. And the trees and the rhododendrons that are around. I mean, those things are just so massive and old. Yeah, so I know that it'll probably be a difficult renovation.
Yeah,
'Cause
those rhododendrons you're talking about caused a lot of the rot. And the
Yes,
decay
up
of
against the house,
And
right.
the beech tree you're talking about, walk out, look at the left side, it's completely rotted in the middle. The
Oh.
branches are hitting the house. I mean, you drive by and it's like, wow. And I've driven by it for years and have been trying to purchase it for years. Because I knew the history and what was going on with it and knew one of the family members. And, there's a lot there. You have income properties, you know what it's like. You bought that one that was burnt and wrapped
Burnt.
up with vinyl. Yeah, it had a fire on it, the one I walked away from, and they wrapped it with vinyl siding and kind of, so there's a lot of work in the older houses.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thanks, Sam.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Yes.
Hi, I'm Mary Teagle. I live at 9 Union, which is kind of near the site. And I haven't looked at the land use code or the building code as it pertains to what you're interested in. So I may say some things that, as Julie said, are not under your purview. So one, I just wanted to get it out of the way. You talked about giving people some help to rehab or maintain their houses. And I would like to point out that window restoration should be high on that list as opposed to replacement. And that segues into my other comment. I have architecture and planning and historic preservation as my background, so stop me if you don't understand what I'm saying. How many people are familiar with Newbury Street in Boston? And do you know where the Nike building is? It doesn't have any historic trim, period. It doesn't have historic windows or doors or floors, but the scale, the color of the brick, and the massing is identical to a certain extent to all the other buildings on Newbury Street. It's really cool. It blew my mind when I saw it. So I just wanted to point out, and I don't know, I think this might be planning, design review. What's important to me about that building is its ratio of mass, footprint, and height, depth to the negative space, the yard. And I realize that's a heck of an imposition. You need to utilize all the land. I understand that. But I think it would be really nice if the scale and massing were consistent with the patterns in that neighborhood, in our town. And I just want to point out, and I don't mean anything mean to anybody, but there are two newish developments in Exeter, one on Epping Road near the railroad tracks, and one near the restaurant now called Street. They have some historic details, but they're on stilts. They're not shaped like, they're not historic. They don't fit in. And I'm not into uniformity, but it's a question of scale and what we're used to. And then, so that's probably a planning and design review thing, but I would encourage people to look at that. And then my last thing, and this is totally in your favor, I would much rather see our town get denser than the sprawl, where we're losing trees, we've got, sorry, it's me, probably others too. Two of the roads into town have changed so much. And yes, the town core has some precious and valuable things, and I think it's wonderful to preserve them. But I think that's why it's important to me that the massing and the ratio, at least as far as as people observe it, feel it from the street, is really important. So we don't end up with something on stilts or something that's,
I do.
I can
agree
elaborate,
with
but
you.
I won't.
I agree with you on that, and also right across from street, there was an older home there, and then it turned into 3 units. It's Harvey windows, Harvey vinyl siding, there's no wide moldings on the corner boards. They could have easily just dressed that up with just trim, and it would have looked a lot nicer. And I was at an event last Thursday, and we walked past it, and I looked at it again, and it actually bothers me. Like, when I see it, it bothers me. When we talked about High Street, the purple house, it bothered me seeing the way they were piecemealing it and placing pieces of the trim and the overspray in the foundation and pouring a concrete pad and then mix-match granite steps on the front. And it's not what I do. When I see that, my wife's like, you got to let it go. It's been years now. It's just, there's no reason to do that unless you're in it for a quick dollar, in and out, and then you're gone. But I agree with what you're saying, and the details matter, especially in the architectural detail. You want it to look good, so.
Yeah, well, I just want to end then with that. The details are great.
Yeah.
And the craftsmanship is wonderful. There's some wonderful old craftsmanship that has been taken care of. But the critical thing is the massing and scale. It could be made of concrete, and the massing and scale could be authentically part of this community. I wouldn't want to see it out of concrete, but it's, how big is it? What is the pitch of the roof? Like that. So I hope that we can have something nice there that isn't, and it's nice you live in town and you have some skin in the game. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody else want to speak tonight? Yes?
I just have a very quick comment. I'm Sheila Roberge, Exeter resident for many, many years. The master plan in 3 places says any new development must take into consideration the neighborhood that it's being put into. And I really hope, and I believe you will do that. I know today's meeting was about the house itself, and I wish it could be saved. I would hate to have your inspectors look at my house. Would not pass any inspections, but I would really hope the barn maybe. There is New Hampshire preservation for rural barns that you can apply to for funds if the barn is visible to the public, and they will help you restore and, keep that barn. And it would be really nice. That would be kind of quirky in the neighborhood. I like that idea. So, thank you.
Could I say one very, very quick thing? Sheila and I, this dates us, worked with Nancy Merrill on the 350th committee. We hope to be working on the next committee for the 375th. And every piece of what happens in town is important and wonderful, and we treasure it. So to hear young people talk about their neighborhood as we feel about ours makes us feel really good. And Nancy was just a charming, delightful person. And so that was fun.
And she definitely got you working on these. If you even knew Nancy slightly, you would find yourself up to your neck in 350. Oh, well. Very good. Yes.
Hello, Jeff Garska, 111 Front Street. I live in the house across the street. I've been hearing some great things about Nancy Merrill. I didn't know her. I'm sorry I didn't. I knew one of her sons, and he lived in the house for a long time. I've toured through that house maybe about 7 or 8 months ago, and I was in the basement, I was in the attic, I was in every little space that you folks were probably in. You know, I think that the renovation of a house, it's a difficult thing, difficult decision, but I've been in a lot of old houses, as you folks have, and it's just really a business decision as to whether you save a structure like this. Question of money, question of how much money is made on an individual project. Look, I see some parallels here. I don't know if everybody would, but does anybody know who Dorothy Vaughan is? She was the lady that saved in Portsmouth.
Strawberry Bank, yes.
Yeah, Strawberry Bank. She created it, in fact, helped to create it. She stood up when nobody else would, when it was a junkyard. It was basically a tidal junkyard, and everything there would have been destroyed. Everything would have been redeveloped, much like downtown, if somebody like that hadn't stood up. And I just see some parallels between this woman, Nancy Merrill. I'm not sure if you know this, but they were both librarians.
They were.
So Dorothy Vaughan was a librarian, and you wouldn't think she'd have much power, but she was maybe one of the most powerful women of her time. 1957, she gave a rousing speech. I think it was the Rotary Club. And she said, no, you know, we don't want these buildings to go away. There's something important here. And you know, I think this is the time that you have to take a look at buildings, regardless of whether they seem to be this. I didn't catch her name, but the woman that came up and was talking about the fact that you may not see anything that's really significant about a structure, but there are things about it. There's the period of time. That's where it's set in the lot, the history of the people that were in it. I mean, we have a lot of houses that were, you know, former presidents. Franklin Pierce House, you know, nothing real special about that. I've been in it, you know, but there were some special people that lived in it. And I think, I just, you know, something tells me that it's more important than just a historical marker. It's something like her life and the family that lived there. They don't seem to care about it anymore, if you believe what we're hearing. But I do, and maybe some other people do. But, you know, I guess this is the way I come down on this. If you don't have a plan, if this gentleman doesn't have a plan right now as to what he's going to do, what's the rush? Why can't we just delay the demolition? Come up with a plan, come back, let's see it. Let's see the plan.
It's not in your jurisdiction.
I don't care what you think my jurisdiction is.
Okay.
Wait a minute. First of all, he's not supposed to be addressing me.
Well, if you're gonna say, if you believe what we hear, I have a problem with that. But
Okay.
I'll address you once we're done with this, so you can go ahead.
Thank you.
Okay.
Do you mind if
All
I
right.
go ahead? Because you've
please.
got no control over that.
Yeah, and you have no control over this, but go ahead.
Well, I
Gentlemen,
I know I do,
gentlemen.
but that's why I'm saying this is my opportunity to say what I
Yeah.
think, and that's what I
Okay.
believe I'm doing. So, I would ask Mr. McCarkar that, you know, they consider how they might be able to use that house. I mean, my house needed renovation when I moved into it. Wasn't as big a renovation. Maybe we spent $150,000. I don't know. Over time, I didn't add it up. I didn't care. But, you know, I've been through that house. I can give you a little history. The front of the house is the newer house. That came about in the 1880s. The reason, I'm told from family members, is because the head of the family was a banker, and he didn't think the house, the structure that was there, really fit him socially. So he decided he'd put on this kind of beautiful facade, 18, 20 feet, whatever it is, never measured it, but from the street, pretty impressive, right? 4 rooms, big staircase, and then you had the old house on the back, and then another structure, as you mentioned, Sam. So, barn of some sort that was incorporated into it. I don't know, if I'm looking at that for development, I could see, maybe a condominium in the front of the building where it's got higher ceilings and different architecture, and then a condominium in the back, 2 condominiums right there, building stays. Yeah, it's an investment. It is, I understand. A lot of us made an investment in our properties, renovated our properties. Didn't have another 5, 10, 15, 20 units that we could put in to the property as well. But why not both? Why not being able to get some density? And don't you think that if you save what's there, you preserve what's there, and people know that you're putting an investment into the history of the house, what's there, don't you think, the neighbors and abutters and neighborhood and town and the market area, wouldn't they maybe give you a little more leeway on some of the other things?
Potentially.
I would. I'd say, well, gee, you're spending more money getting this done, this piece done, and preserving this. We appreciate that. Maybe there's something that could be done in the back and still preserve some of it. But I think, I just think it's important to really think this through, because I'll tell you this: once that house is gone, it's never coming back. It's gone. The other question I have is this, and this is unrelated to this discussion, really, but I want to put it out there. I looked up this property. I looked up the deed on this property. And this property is owned by a company called 112 Front Street, LLC. And the gentleman, Sam McCarcar, is not listed anywhere in there. It's another company.
Again, that's not our purview.
Understood. Understood.
And just to understand, as I said earlier, I'm sorry, I'm taking all your
It's okay.
hair. As I said before, Mr. McCarcar is happy to work with us on a solution that would meet concerns that we may have. It's early stages for him, and we have a 30-day time limit to after he put in an application for demolition. So that's why we're having the hearing now. Future work, he has assured us that he will take our input and use it in his consideration. And again, it has to go through the town's process of the planning board review and technical review, and that's all transparent. And if you're in a butter or friends of an abutter, you'll be notified, or the abutters will be notified.
Understood.
No, I understand what you're...
I asked that question just because the gentleman is describing himself as an Exeter resident, longtime resident, which I believe, I understand. But I'd like to make sure that it is really in control of this Exeter resident and not some other entity. And I don't have proof of that based on the deed. That's all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So like I said, the issue I have is him questioning my integrity, if this is true. Andrew Merrill himself said, "Sam, we do not care if you take the house down. They needed the money. And if you'd like, I'll show you the check that I wrote, the cash, to purchase this property. Then you set up an LLC. Every LLC is specific to that property for liability purposes. So that's why it's that way. And then also, when the price escalated and became a bidding war with an out-of-town developer, I brought in somebody to help with the scale of the project. So you talk about jacking it up, renovating it, putting a driveway in, site work. There may be close to another $1 million of just improvements before you even put a foundation in the ground. So while I, wish I was in that position financially, I'm not. So yes, I have a partner, but I have the cash into it, which closed the property. So I bought it, and then I brought in a partner, and we set up 112 Front Street. And that gentleman, John O'Neill, you can write that down. He will be here when we go through the planning process. And like Julie had said, I've already offered to work with them. And why the rush? The rush of putting the demolition permit says, okay, the building's coming down, or maybe it's not, and when we're done working with the historic district, because I did look at that, and it depends where I could put the driveway, that's gonna be based on technical review, planning, setback requirements. Could I save a piece of it, the front piece, which was the older piece, and you're correct, that was added after the fact. So we're looking at it, like next door, they turned that home into a lot of condos, right on the corner. And if you look to the right, there's 2 houses that are vinyl sided, and then you have the Rose's Place, the art shop, right? And then across the street from that, are brand-new condos that are not keeping in with the neighborhood. I think they call them the lofts. And next to that is a multifamily that has really low-cost vinyl siding on it. So it's a mixed match of the neighborhood. If you want to hug it tight to Gill Street, there's all beautiful homes there, and further down coming into town, yes. But the neighborhood is a mix. And again, that's really a planning to work with zoning to change that when someone does build something. Have some regulations in there on the materials that you could use, the look of the property, so that we could keep our town looking the way it is. So that's all I have.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else wishing to speak?
Jim Davis, 115 Front Street. I just want to know that when the board, if the board recommends that the house be torn down and given a demolition permit, when will that demolition take place?
Honestly, I don't know. I'm gonna look at it, and then once we have this, then I'm gonna sit down with
Because-
Charles and Doug, and
Right.
when the engineers are done.
Well, the thing I have is you demolition it, and then it takes 18 months to get your permits. What are we going to be looking at? Are we going to be looking at a 2-acre gravel pit?
No,
I mean, what's it going to look like? I mean,
it's gonna look like what it is right now, minus the house, until we're ready to start construction.
right, so you're going to leave the trees and everything else in there,
It'll be there
and so
until-
it's just the house and the barn that are going to be removed.
If-
Everything else is going to stay there.
If it comes down.
Right.
Okay, and then if it does, then it'll come down and everything else will be there until we're ready to start construction and start actually building.
Yeah, but then you have no control, no one has any control over what that looks like when the house comes down. And maybe the board could recommend that, yes, contingent upon when permits are issued, then the house can be demolished. Instead of having to look at a vacant lot for X amount of months or X amount of years even. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes?
Hi, everyone. Jim Nealon from 5 Gill Street, here with my wife, Kristen. Maybe you were going to do this anyway, but I think it would be great for all of us to understand your process. So what's going to happen after this meeting? Is there a comment period? What are you going to do? What kind of a recommendation do you make to whom, and that sort of thing? That'd be super helpful.
Well, our demolition review committee has recommendation abilities only. And we would be recommending, based on the historical aspect of the house, to approve or deny the permit. And we have to get a response back within 30 days? 30 days, according to town law. So
And who are you making your recommendation to?
it would be to the planning board, or,
This is where the process gets a little
Sticky.
maybe it could be corrected in some way, but We go into action when a building is proposed to be demolished. So that could be, as Mr. McCarker did, when he goes in for a demolition permit to the code enforcement officer. Some projects, they propose demolition when they present their site plan to the planning board. And then we're called in before, consider we should be anyway, called in before the whole planning board process is done. So in this case, it was triggered by the code enforcement officer, so our opinion is going to be addressed to him. Doug Eastman.
And it's because we have this room to try to decide that we can call a meeting like this. That's why it's important to get your input, that it's not just a bunch of people in a closed room somewhere making this decision.
I just have a very simple question. When does the clock start?
The 30-day clock for this group to ask,
Yeah.
as soon as we're informed of
When you've made your decision.
Oh, when we've made the decision?
Is that when the clock starts, or is
No. It starts when the application is presented to this commission is notified that an application has been put in.
And is there a written comment period, or this is the comment period?
This is the comment period. Although, no, actually, you can write in too, but we have to make a decision.
And is there a record of the comments that have been made?
It will be, yes, it would be with the planning department.
No, sorry, I mean, is there a record of what people have said tonight?
Oh, yes, absolutely. In fact, for those of you who spoke, can you stop and give our recording secretary your name so they're spelled correctly?
So, clarification, has the application for the demolition been submitted?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
That's why we're here, is because we're
And when was it submitted?
I haven't-
September 5th.
Where are we on the clock?
September 5th.
Okay, so we're,
October 5th, is that from?
It's 30 business days.
from the date the application was submitted, and now it's a month later almost.
So it is 30 business days. So you wouldn't include, so it is extended more than.
So let me just look at my calendar.
8 or something.
So we have to make up our minds fairly fast.
It sounds like it.
And Julie, or the panel, so I heard that you said that the recommendation would go to Doug Eastman.
Yes.
What happens with it after that?
See, he doesn't, is not part of the planning board process, but he is part of the technical review committee, and that goes before the planning board hears it. So you can, if you have concerns, please address them to him. Again, he doesn't, because we don't have the authority to say, stop that demolition, he can take it under advisement, but, and submit it to the planning board when the project comes before them.
And who does have the authority to say, stop the demolition?
The planning board. Even the well, no, the HDC does. I'm just counting the days here.
What criteria do they need to stop a demo? If we write a whole bunch of letters to Doug Eastman and just say, we don't want you to knock down this house because we're going to wind up knocking down all the old houses in Exeter. I mean, what
I'm sorry, Barbara, can you come sit in front of a microphone and introduce yourself?
See here.
Yeah, I know. Real quick.
Okay, I'm Barbara Rumkunis from the Exeter Historical Society, and my question is, what criteria is the best tactic for us to use if we want to try and stop a demolition on this house? We can't just go in and say, we love this house and you're going to knock down all the beautiful houses in Exeter every time a family needs to sell. What would actually work? What could stop it? I assume that if it has tremendous historical significance, like we're not going to take down the Amos Tuck house, and it's not inside the historic district, correct?
Right.
Right. So what might work? What can we try?
To stop this particular demolition, or to stop any?
This
'Cause
one.
This is a confluence of situations that's happened that will happen over and over again unless we don't take another type of strategy to work with people who do want to preserve their homes for the future, who can't afford to keep them, who don't know how to keep them. So I think this is going to keep on reoccurring if we don't take other strategies.
I understand that, but we're kind of on a time clock here.
Yes.
So what might be helpful now, and then what might be helpful long-term?
Well,
but right now.
September 5th.
It's the 16th is 30 days.
So
basically, we would make a recommendation to Doug Eastman, who would bring it before the Technical Review Committee of the Planning Board, and they would make a decision. So they would be the next body to present your opinions to.
Another consideration that the commission can take is to table our decision to till the end of our 30-day period, and have, we've listened to what you've had to say. We can enter that into our consideration. We don't have to make a decision tonight because I'm looking at the 30-day period, and we are still within it. Let's see, 5.
I think it's the 16th, October 16th. No, maybe the 17th. There you go.
That's when our next meeting is. Sorry.
We could table it till then.
Yeah, I'm not adding up.
But we'd have to table it till before then, if we did table it.
Right, until
Right.
our next hearing.
What is the magic day on the calendar, 30 days out?
Business days.
Less than weekend.
I think they figured out October 17th. October 17th, I think it was.
5:39, it is the 10th.
Oh, the gentleman in the corner wants to talk
Can I just
again.
ask one question just to make sure?
Yeah, just go to a microphone,
Or the 18th, actually.
please.
Is it, so am I hearing that Doug Eastman can't just pull the trigger without going to the technical review committee? Or do you guys really know?
I wish we had that power. We don't.
Well, that's why I want to, I mean, the question was asked, Barbara had asked the question, who do we direct this to? I think we should direct it directly to Doug.
Right, but what do we say? Do we say?
Hold off. There's no information on this, there's not enough information on this property. We think it's got historical significance. What's the rush? Hold it off.
And the things that you can mention in your letters are what are the historical values to the town? What kind of resource does it add? Is it architectural? Is it who lived there? When we do area surveys, they're called, when we look at a neighborhood, and you'll see them on our website if you take a look. The significance of a property isn't just its construction or where it's not just architectural. It's also the culture of the property and was it a place that was central to the town's activities or who lived there. If you look at the Franklin Street survey, that actually could be considered an historic district, even though you don't think it looks like one. But it's because of the pattern of growth in that area, and that we had. That's where most immigrants would come and settle in that area because it was the low-cost area of town, and then they would move out to a more prosperous part as they, worked in it. So that's part of the history that we're looking at. That's why we mentioned Nancy Merrill. That's why we mentioned its place on the street and the facade and its place in its lot and the surrounding property. So these are the kind of things that you can put in a letter to Doug. He's going to he'll pass that on to the town planner, who works with the planning board and also is on that technical review committee, which Mr. McCarker has to go through first if he's doing a project other than renovating the house.
Okay. The other thing I'd like to mention, and it goes back kind of to my Portsmouth Strawberry Bank comment. This house obviously it was built into several pieces, okay, and at several time periods. But also, many of you might not know that in the late 40s, 50s, this and other houses in this neighborhood were an important place for children to gather, people, families to gather, and they used to have meals, neighborhood meals. This is one of the houses this happened. It was an important one. Merrill's had a lot of kids. And so they used to come together at this house and have, all these family and neighborhood gatherings. And that happened around that area, right in that area. I think you probably know about some of those. But, and so that takes us from 1850 through the 1950s. I mean, that's quite a span of time as far as history is concerned. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I think that might address what can happen from now until we make an opinion, and it does go before the Technical Review Committee of the Planning Board. But, this house is in this state for a number of different reasons, and how can we help people who own older homes not get it to the state that it's in?
Talking about the future.
Right.
But that's a good question, and that's something that we need to address, but not tonight. Right now, we've got to
It's going to keep
look at
us,
this house.
that we'll be in the same situation over and over again with these houses.
I just wanted to ask, my name is Beth Diamond. I live around the corner on Union Street, and I only have a minute because I have to go to the Historical Society program across the street, which
Yes.
I highly recommend. You mentioned that your jurisdiction is that building, is it something that's unique? Is it something the building itself has some significance? And then we have who lived there, right? People, there's no argument about the fact that Nancy Merrill was a significant person in Exeter's history and, made contributions, right? We know that. But then there's the house itself. Is it 1 in a million? Is it, not? Have you drawn a conclusion about the style of house, the age of the house, the condition that it's in? And if so, what is that conclusion?
Well, it's not a unique style. We know that. It's a hodgepodge, and we know that.
But that is also common resource to the town. If you go down, even further down Front Street, you'll see houses that there's a front face and then there's something smaller and something smaller and something smaller that goes behind. So that is a natural growth. And I do want to correct the 30 business day thing. The Demolition Review Committee did make a determination that this should be applied for a public hearing. And that's when the 30 days began. So we still have some time. So
When was the decision made? And
the decision was made at our last meeting, September 18th. So
Of the subcommittee.
Of the subcommittee, yeah. That's when we presented to the Heritage Commission as a whole, and at that time made the decision to hold this public hearing because the Demolition Review Committee, which is just a subset of this committee, decided that it needed more investigation, more discussion, more input. So the 30 days actually does go before we can take it up at our next meeting, which is the 16th.
So September 15th to...
October 30th, at this point almost, right?
Yeah.
Can I just make one comment regarding, Francois, what you said, that if we don't...
Hold on a second. I'm sorry, I'm looking at October. So so September 18th, let's see, 5, 10...
October.
1, 2, 3,
15. Yeah. The 23rd. Am I counting? I think I'm counting a week twice.
I think it's the 28th.
2. Yeah, the 30th is the final decision has to be made by the 30th.
Thanks.
And again, we do still have a regular scheduled Heritage Commission meeting on the 16th. So more of this conversation can happen then.
I think after hearing the discussion, and Francois, it seems like the concern that you've made a couple of times is that how do we keep for this from happening again?
Yes.
I think it's making sure that these buildings don't get demolished. Otherwise, then why wouldn't I just demolish mine instead of modernizing it? You see one go down, then that's kind of a trickle-down effect. If you're not maintaining or restoring it, then you're just giving the next person the... what's the word I'm looking for? The license, the permission to think that that's what the
Precedent.
Historic Society wants to do, that there's no real value in maintaining these historic homes, because if this one is in bad enough condition, then you just demolish it and you don't need to maintain that view on Front Street. And I get it, other houses are modernized, and that's happened because that hasn't been addressed, and that hasn't been upheld, and that hasn't been promoted. But you see a room full of people that obviously are very invested in the neighborhood and the look of it, and they might live in a more modern condo next door that has been remodeled. But I think with the investments they've made into their hardscaping and landscaping, I think it's showing that they want to maintain, a beautiful area. And I get that you're not gonna, Mr. McCarkar isn't wanting to vinyl side things, but at the same time, it doesn't mean that home isn't maintained, or that, some homage, again, like I said before, isn't upheld. Because then I'm just gonna tear something else down the street and make an investment. So I don't know if that makes any sense. But if your concern is how do we keep this from happening in the future,
Right.
Educating people, yes, having things on your website, but also not tearing buildings down just because it makes financial sense. So thank you for addressing that and having this meeting and giving us time to discuss it. And for meeting Mr. McCarkar, I understand this is also for me, it's an opportunity to meet you and for you to meet me. And I get that it's a financial investment, but I have 3 little kids. I'm missing bedtime because I don't want to see the neighborhood change in a huge way. And, I get that you want to make an investment, but there's plenty of land back there too. So, I think balancing that is important.
Well, it's very encouraging to see all you people here. Now, where were you when they tore down that beautiful house at the top of High Street?
We didn't get a letter.
Yeah.
Can I just add something?
Yes.
I just want
Just come up to the microphone, please.
I'm sorry, my name's Adele Robertson, I'm at 106 Front Street. I just want to add something. I was in town when we had the Merrill lectures, and the Merrill lectures were very important to the high school kids, and that's part of the legacy as well. I mean, the Merrill family was a very philanthropic family, and as important as the house is, so were the people in the house. Just wanted to add Dave Merrill's name to Nancy's as well.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you.
I just wanted to say that I'm aware of that, and it's why in the purchase and sale agreement, I wanted to recognize them. The family themselves that have sold it, and I know you know them, you could contact Andrew. They needed the money to take care of some of the other family members that weren't as fortunate as some, and they sold it. And they allowed it to fall in, in the condition that it's in. I didn't have to do that. It is zoned commercial. I'm going with residential. From day one, I said I'm gonna try to put something that's in keeping with the neighborhood. We could put that in writing. That's not a problem for me. So I don't know what else, I could do. If the purchase price wasn't where it was, then maybe financially I could save the front piece or the facade of it, or rebuild what's gonna be with the same appearance or something. But Julie, that's why on the site walk, I said from the very beginning, and again, really want to mention that the Heritage Commission does not have jurisdiction if the building comes down or not. It's recommendations.
Right.
And knowing that, coming into it, I offered to work with them so that we could collaborate and put something nice in there that is in keeping with the neighborhood, including the exterior and the colors and the materials used. So I just want everyone to kind of just think about that. That if I walk from the project and put it back on the market, that's not to say someone else is going to come in and maybe put something commercial in there.
Right.
There's been talk, I'll be honest, like someone said, could we put a parking garage in there? Because all the units that are being built in town that don't have parking, with all these condos that are going up, and you can't stop it. You could delay it, but you can't stop it. So I just think that I'd like to really work with the abutters, work with the Heritage Commission. I'll be working with Mr. Sharples, going through the proper channels, and working within the community of putting something that is nice in there. And so you put in for the permit, that gives you, okay, is that going down? Is it not? What's it look like? And how do you do your layout?
Right, and I want to stress that Mr. McCarger has gone out of his way to say that he wants our input. And again,
And it's in the contract that I offer the family.
okay,
So
yes, the recognition,
that's why I have a real issue
right?
with
The
so.
yeah. So there is an opportunity for us to work together, and maybe we can incorporate the things that are of concern to you in his solution. But again, it's just a collaboration. It's not a final say so. And as to what can we do to stop demolition, like just stop it? I'll tell you that would not pass the State House sniff test. I'm sure it's been proposed, but property rights are a big thing in New Hampshire, and if I could change the law, I would, but I'm one of 400, so just property rights always comes up as an issue, so I'm not sure there's anything the town can do.
Hi, Dana Gastick-French. I'm at 9 Gill Street. We met the other day in the backyard. I know there's been a lot of conversation about kind of preserving the neighborhood, and I really do appreciate the attention to that regardless of the outcome here. I'm going to trust in that, and I think we all appreciate that. However, there has been a lot of conversation about the location of this property, and I'd like to kind of point out that it is at a pivotal place in terms of what neighborhoods there are. There was conversation that, going towards Washington Street, that it's become very mixed in terms of the attention to preservation, and moving in this direction towards Gill Street, the properties are more preserved, and I think there is an opportunity here to draw a line. I don't think it's okay to say, well, there's a lot of vinyl across the street diagonally, and because I think at some point we have to draw a line if we want to preserve an interior of the town. So thank you for considering that, but also I don't want it to become an argument that it's okay because 2 doors down, 3 doors down, et cetera. I don't know the properties well enough to know specifically. There's a real opportunity here to set a practice that could hopefully preserve an interior in that keeping.
Oh, did you want to say something?
Vince Powers, the last thing I got to leave though, but I think we got off topic a little bit tonight. Like we're going away from whether or not this building should be demolition or not. That's really the purpose of this, right? That's what we're talking about. So I don't know how we're piggybacking on all the other things of like, well, in the future we should do this or that. But it sounds like this building, it doesn't look great like it is. So whether it should come down or not, I don't know if it has that much value to keep it up the way it is, especially if it's in terrible disrepair. And then if it does come down and something else goes there instead of it that could look better, that's okay too. So I just wanted to kind of set the record on that.
As long as it fits, as long as I don't remember the terms you used, but that's why I want whatever goes in to look as much like what's there now as it possibly can, and you're nodding. Thank you.
The woman that was talking about
Yes.
the mass and the space and the fit, and that really rang to me true as well, that, you could put something there that has the same feel and whatnot, unlike, just the row houses like downtown by the Sea Dog. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. If there's no other comments, I'll ask for a motion to close the public hearing.
I move to close the public hearing.
Second.
So would there be a motion to deliberate today or to
vote on closing the public hearing?
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Aye. That motion carries. We could delay the deliberation and the recommendation, or we can
I would like to delay. I'm getting very tired, plus I need to be across the street.
I agree. I think that we need to take in what's been said here, and I'm really happy that we have so much of observation that we need to discuss it further. We have to, I know this commission is not, I'm glad this was a learning opportunity for you all and what this commission does. We don't have a lot of authority, but we do have an educational purpose, and you've added to that. So
And
I
this
really
might be a good time to point out that we are a very small group. And some of us have been doing this for many, many years and would like to stop, but
I think retire is a better word.
yes. I mean, even murderers only get 25 years. So we would like to, if you do like what we do and approve of what we're trying to do, consider joining the commission. This is not the Historical Society, by the way. They're across the street. This is the
Heritage.
The Heritage Commission.
I know.
I just have one more thing. It's a question. Has the Heritage Committee written up anything over all these years to present to planning so that they could actually put it out to the town for a vote? Because if they had, and in certain districts, and there was specific zoning, you have to use cedar siding. There's like things that you could do. So we're talking about preserving the town, but like what's really happening? I know like you don't really have the teeth to do it, but there's another way of writing it, getting it to planning, getting it to the town, because the town needs to vote. And I'm sure a lot of the people that live in the town will vote for that. So then it is in keeping. Just like downtown when there was a Verizon store and he had that neon Verizon sign. Do you remember that? It was a cell phone thing. I'm like, how did they even allow that to hang there? Just that specific. And I think honestly, like all of us, we need to do better in writing it in so that the town looks like it is and doesn't start turning into Cambridge, like Massachusetts or something. So it's just, I mean, I don't know if you might be doing it already. Maybe this works, but I think maybe there needs to be a bigger push in what you can do actually when you're building. And I'm not going to say like paint your building yellow.
Do I want to address any of the studies
I
that
won't
we've
mention
done?
that. So, all right.
So can I'm just going to briefly answer that.
Yeah.
So part of our duties is to preserve the historic assets of the town-wide. So
Right.
over time, what this committee has done is gotten grants to survey different neighborhoods. And what we do is document the housing stock in that neighborhood. And this one right now is the Pine Street neighborhood. And we document the housing stock, and they go into in-depth research about when houses were started to infill or be developed in the properties. And it goes into the history of who lived in the neighborhood, what style housing it is. And then these studies also analyze, could this be in a historic district in and of itself? And the neighborhood has to vote on whether they want it to be an historic district,
Actually,
which
the
would...
whole town has to vote.
Well, the town, that's my point, Julie. The town
okay.
has to vote, but then it's not just a historic district. It even comes down to planning and building, and then your zoning requirements, at least like what the buildings look like when they're being built.
I don't disagree with you,
Yeah.
but I will tell
Is
you.
that possible? I guess.
I
I don't think it is.
I don't believe it
I-
is.
I could kind of, because like I said, my family tried to build a multifamily on Silver Street. They ended up doing it, not us, but the city gave us specific requirements that if we were going to put in this 3-family condo, it needed to have 6 out of 10 criteria. It had to have spindling. It had to have a certain type of awning. It had to have a certain type of trim. Like from the get-go, like we were in planning phases, and that was addressed to us. So you're saying that something like that doesn't exist in Exeter?
We have a tool like that that the voters did pass, whether they understood what they were reading or not, because the zoning ordinance changes start at the top, and everybody just says, yeah, okay. I don't know that very many people actually look into them, but that's an aside. We did approve what's called a MUND, and that's a mixed-use neighborhood development. Doesn't apply, well, actually, it does apply. it doesn't apply in this case because we designated the areas where that can be done.
They pulled back, Julie, it was a bigger map, and they pulled it back and approved certain sections.
Right, there's a section of.
the areas, like Portsmouth Ave, Epping Road,
Right.
Right.
And a little bit on Front Street, but not as far as your house, I believe.
If that was, then it would be mixed use. You'd have retail down and condos up. So I think having homes in there would be better than that.
Right, and so that's the limit we have so far, but if we put into our master plan, this is one of our goals, and, you know, one of the goals is preservation of the town's character. That's in our master plan. How we go about and do that is another discussion. And, you know, I'm glad to hear the suggestions, but I will tell you, I have to go back to property rights. And people want to be able to do what they can. And the more restrictions, the more, I'm going to say, lawsuits may occur. You know, we can look into that. I would love to do that before in January and see what more we can do. But stopping a demolition is very difficult. And Pam, I think you referred to, or somebody referred to the house on the corner of Court Street and Front Street, that there was a human chain of people that stopped a gas station, I think, from demolishing the house and putting in a gas station. And so that was an example of how people worked. But I don't think anything has changed in our zoning ordinance since then, that we might have to do the same thing. You know, that was a big corporation. It wasn't a small company that's would just, you know, pick your choose, as my dad used to say. So it's thank you for bringing up the, you know, is there something the town can do? My experience having been on the zoning board and being at the State House is that would go down in flames.
Yeah, it's land rights. And the precedence has been set. So when you mention the litigation, the precedence has been set, and that's what's going to make it challenging to not approve or allow it. But again, you know, we'll work with everybody, regardless of the outcome. Yeah. And also, when you start getting litigious and putting roadblocks up, we need housing. It's a matter of working with the developers, working with the people, and coming together and having something that serves a community, but also provides the need for additional housing. And
thank you.
But I do think there are things that we can do and explore doing them. Like, for example, this particular house, the family just couldn't keep it up. It needs tremendous amount of repair. So there are other houses with similar situations. How can we help people with houses that need to be repaired? How could we help them repair them? Community action agencies have weatherization programs where they can come in and help you modernize your heating. I mean, that is just one system in a house that needs to be upkept. You can put your house on the National Historic Register. I mean, could this house be put on the register? I don't know. It had a significant person live there. But you can work with deed clauses where you develop a deed where you do not want your house demolished because of the historic value. And I think most people don't know about that. And we could help people in that way. And then, of course, we've done a lot of work on mapping neighborhoods and proposing historic districts.
Well, not necessarily.
The neighborhood has not necessarily wanted the entire district. Maybe there would be a section of that neighborhood that would say, yes, we would like to be an historic district, thus preventing demolition in that particular area. So these are things that we can explore because that's what I would like to do.
And one of the things that this commission's purpose is to educate. And I will tell you that it's been very difficult to have special events where we talk about our mapping project, again, found on our website, because we didn't have any staff support. We didn't have anybody in town that took minutes. We didn't have anybody on the staff that could help us organize an event. And relying on the folks, the volunteers here to do that has been very difficult for me to press. You're coming here, you're doing these considerations, helping out with these grants, helping out finding the information. Now go put on a show. I'm not sure everybody signed up for that. but there are, you have recommendations, something you want to see. We can do presentations now at every meeting. I would love to show you our mapping project that shows the growth of the town over time. I don't know where I'm going with this, except for we've been limited in our capabilities to let you know what our job is. And I hope you take that to heart and consider joining us. And the other thing, one last thing, Mr. McCarker, one last thing. The New Hampshire Preservation Alliance in Concord is a big barn advocate, and they have some funds.
I wanted to talk to you about that because someone else had mentioned the barn.
Folks, can you take your conversation out?
What about my barn, Julie? It's a 1780. The sills are rotted. I need to, literally, I'm going to jack it up and fix it.
Can you take your conversation out of the room, please? We're not done here.
Okay, so do we have to vote on postponing?
Yes.
Motion to
Postpone deliberation or close the meeting?
to win.
Our next meeting, October 16th.
October 16th. Okay, we'll move our deliberation till October 16th. All in favor? Any opposed?
Aye.
Carry. The move to close the meeting? Adjourn?
Second.
Exeter TV. Exeter TV is the town's public and government access channels, available on Comcast channels 6 and 22. Channel 6 is your channel. If you have an idea for a program, want to host your own talk show, or submit a film, we're here to get your content on television. On Channel 22, we bring you live and replay coverage of government meetings and other town updates. A third channel, Blue Hawk Media, is operated by SAU 16 and can be found on Channel 8, with all your school sports, events, and meetings. You can watch Exeter TV online at exeternh.tv, Apple TV, and on Roku. Find us on social media for extra content. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell to get notified about live streams and new content. Tune in to our platforms every other Friday to watch the Exeter Biweekly Report, with recaps of recent events, updates from town departments, and messages from nonprofits in your area. If you head to our website, exeternh.tv, we invite you to sign up to our newsletter to receive monthly updates about new content, upcoming meetings, and more. We'd like to thank you for taking the time to watch Exeter TV and hope that you tune in to our other content as well.